Are you waiting to call Fort Collins, Colorado your home? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about why it's time to buy in Fort Collins right now.
All right, let's go.
If you're interested in moving to Colorado, Denver, or any of the surrounding cities, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button down below and notification bell. We put out 2 videos a week.
Yeah, guys, we'd like to be as your boots on the ground experts, because if you're planning on moving to Colorado, listen, we give you all the information you need. We're talking about cost of living. We're talking about home prices. We're talking about great activities that you and your family or you as a single person like to do. With that, licensed real estate agent here, helping so many of you out when you're purchasing real estate inside the state of Colorado. I'm gonna throw the phone number in right below, right there. So give us a call. If you call us, you're gonna get us and us only, no one else. So let's go ahead and start this video. We're gonna talk about why you need to buy into Fort Collins right now. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. The reason that we really want to hone in on Fort Collins is because it has been one of the top spots to move to in the United States these last few years. It was #1, I believe it was back in like 2020 or something like that. But anyways, it's been one of those top spots. And that's why if you're looking at moving to Colorado, right now might be the best time to purchase. And the first thing that we're really going to be talking about is the obvious one, home prices.
Yeah, so in March, actually 77 homes that went on the market, only 26 of them were priced under $600,000. So that gives you an idea, and that's right before kind of our market starts to get really, really hot. That's March. You know, we're sitting here in now May. I can't believe it's May now. Sitting here in May, and so that shows you that is only going to increase because now it's springtime, and this is when most of the houses hit the market and things are going under contract. But that's only 34%. Were priced under $600,000, which is crazy. In fact, I was looking it up, and in Larimer County, Wellington, it used to be Wellington and Johnstown that were actually still the median sales price under $500,000, but not so much anymore. Johnstown is starting to increase beyond that. So take us into some of the surrounding cities.
The actual facts, right?
Yes.
So it's like we could sit here and just speak all this fluff all day long, whatever it is, but you want to know the actual numbers, right? You want to dive in and figure out what that is. I don't know what kind of accent I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to bring it to you, right? All right, so let's kind of talk about Fort Collins. So Fort Collins, median sales price as of April 2022 was $547. What does that look like year over year? So if we're looking at 2021 to 2022, it was up 16.41% from that year, that 12-month span. Let's go back 24 months. Let's go back to April of 2020. You're looking at almost, actually, already a 40.29% increase in valuation. Like, that is insane, guys. I mean, think about that. That's almost a 50% increase in the value of your home, or for what homes are selling for, in Fort Collins, Colorado. That 2020 year that we talked about, right? The #1 spot to move to in the United States, probably had a huge uptick on it. But if you're planning on moving to Fort Collins, you're just going to kind of, yeah, you know what, I'm going to see what happens. Maybe I'll do it in 2023, 2024. You might want to move it now, because otherwise that money that you're planning on purchasing or spending on a home isn't going to go as far as if you would today. Let's kind of dive into the other cities. And so this is actually going to be revealing a little bit, because it'll show you over this last 12 months Fort Collins, because it has become so popular. The common theme is, what about the cities that are surrounding Fort Collins? What if I could take advantage of Fort Collins and just be near it, be in the cities around it? Let's talk about the first one. We're going to talk about Wellington, which is just north of Fort Collins. And so that one, the median price point is $495, or median sales price is $495 in April of 2022. What does that look like year over year from 2021 to 2022? You're looking at a 20%, just a little bit over 20% increase in valuations from 2021 to 2022. What does that look like over the last 24 months? You're looking at a 37% increase, right? And so similar to Fort Collins, not quite that 40%, a little bit lower. But the biggest thing I really want you to realize is over the last year, it's increased more than Fort Collins did in regards to the how much houses they're selling for. And that's because people are doing that, where they're looking at Fort Collins, they want to take advantage of Fort Collins, but they might want to live on the outskirts of it. Let's check out some of these other cities. Let's go straight south. We're going to talk about Loveland, Colorado. If you haven't checked out our Loveland, Colorado video, I highly recommend checking it out. We posted probably about 2 months back. We're going to be posting another Loveland video here soon, probably next week. check that one out. It's going to be coming here soon. So Loveland, Colorado, you're looking at a median sales price point of $520. That was of April of 2022. I know it sounds redundant, but I want to make sure that I give you the actual facts and I'm not just going to throw some random numbers out there. What does that look like year over year? 2021 to 2022, how much does that increase? You're looking at 27%. So that's pretty damn high. Loveland, I've always thought it is like the little sister to Fort Collins, and so it's not quite Fort Collins. It doesn't have the appeal of Fort Collins, but it has a lot of similarities. It has a lot of the similar attributes that Fort Collins does, and that's why I think that Loveland blew up as much as it did, even more so than Wellington, right?
Yeah, and one thing too, if you are interested in kind of some of these outskirts cities, we do cover some of these cities. We're actually going to be talking about why somebody that we've been working with really closely chose Loveland as her home, and she's a real estate agent. So stick around. We are going to be posting that soon. You're going to want to see that, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified when that gets released, because you want to follow these surrounding cities, I'm telling you, and the numbers are showing it here.
Well, I mean, it's so telling. Northern Colorado is blowing up. There is appeal to Denver, living in Denver, if you have a job in Denver, but there's even people who have jobs in Denver who are moving to Northern Colorado, like Fort Collins and Loveland, and they'll take the commute every morning, or they can work from home, because ever since COVID, that's become so much more prevalent, right? People are working from home. They can do it. They could Zoom in. They could do these conference calls. And so people are like, well, why would I want to live in Fort Collins, right? And so we'll kind of dig into a few other reasons about that appeal of Fort Collins and why you need to purchase there now. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and go straight east of Fort Collins. We're going to talk about Greeley. Greeley is another city that's really up and coming. So what does it look like? So your median sales price of Greeley is $430, so a lot lower than Fort Collins. There is this kind of unspoken law about Colorado. If you're purchasing on the east side of I-25, most of the time you're going to be spending less than as opposed to purchasing on the west side of I-25. Why? The mountains. People want the mountain views, right? And so they want to be closer to the mountains. Greeley is definitely a lot further off of I-25 than Fort Collins, or I guess further from the mountains than Fort Collins is. That's why the price point is so much lower. What does that look like year over year? So the median sales price from 2021 to 2022 increased by 22.54%. All right, cool. So it's still going up. It's not as crazy as Loveland was, but it's still doing pretty damn good.
It's further away from Fort Collins, so that makes sense why Loveland would be a little higher than over, say, in Greeley. It does feel a little bit further.
And I'll just tell you from our analytics on our side of things, when we see you guys watching our videos, our Greeley video is popping like crazy. What's that tell us? It tells us that there is interest out there in Greeley, Colorado. Absolutely. And so it's growing like crazy. What does that look like over the last 24 months? So the last 24 months, it's increased from 2020 to 2022, 37.82% is how much that median sales price has increased. And so it's still growing like crazy. Like I said, it's not the 40% that Fort Collins did, but it's still, I mean, these cities are increasing like crazy. All right, so let's kind of talk about a smaller city that's not quite as popular as these other ones that we've talked about, Johnstown. And Johnstown many times is confused with Loveland. They kind of mesh together at I-25. They kind of like do this like intermingling thing, right? And so a lot of times you're in Johnstown, like, well, this is Loveland, is it? Or you're in Loveland, like, this is Johnstown, is it? So let's kind of talk about Johnstown a little bit. So the median sales price in Johnstown was $505 for April of 2022.
So this is the one that I was telling you about. So before, Wellington and Johnstown, being kind of the smaller of the two, were under $500,000 for the median sales price. Yep. And now Johnstown is now $505. So it's changing. We're starting to see people say, hey, I'll live in a smaller town because everything's kind of starting to mingle together. Like Fort Collins is, growing outward. Loveland is all the way to the highway now, but they're starting to grow together and be so close that people aren't, they're like, yeah, okay, fine, Johnstown. But now it's starting to finally creep up. And that was one of the ones in Larimer County that was actually used to be under $500,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so what were we looking at? So we've talked about all these cities, how much they've increased over these last 12 months. Well, Johnstown has increased 28.34% over these last 12 months. That's the most out of all these cities that we talked about. Yeah, for sure. The 24 months isn't quite there, and I think it's just recently this last year is when it really kind of picked up traction over this last year, because over the last 24 months it's 35%, which is still high, but it's not as high as some of these other cities. But it just kind of shows how popular Fort Collins is. It's kind of giving that Denver metro feel, right? Where it's like people don't want to be in Denver, but hey, why don't I check some of these cities out outside of Denver and still have access into Denver? And so that's a big reason. Like it's super telling watching these cities outside of Fort Collins as to why it's important to move into Fort Collins now and not wait, because those price points, if you try and escape to those cities on the outside, they're going up the same way too, right? So you can't escape to the cities and expect much lower price points. Sure, you might get a little bit lower, but they keep going up the same as Fort Collins, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you guys are all probably saying, well, Colorado as a whole is going up, right? Yes, but there's a couple reasons that we're going to be covering today, especially in this next one, about why Fort Collins specifically everybody is interested in. That leads us into the second reason Fort Collins is the hot spot right now, and that is because the population is growing. So what do I mean by that? Well, we have talked about this a number of times. If you haven't checked out our other Fort Collins videos, go check them out. Peter will put in a little link up here to some of the popular ones.
I always forget because it's always mirrored, so I'm like, is it there? Is it there?
I'll cover over here, you cover over there. Anyways, but population for Fort Collins has actually quadrupled in the last 50 years. And what I mean by that is a lot of the things that are causing people to want to move to Fort Collins outside of its, beautiful mountains and all the wonderful biking community and just all the things that are great about Fort Collins, it is because it keeps hitting the best of best all across like all the different news feeds. So, best of the best for livability, best of the best for
outdoor lifestyle, best of the best for families.
Whatever it may be, it keeps hitting the radar and people are like, like moving to Colorado is already on their mind. They're like, why is everybody so excited about Fort Collins? So we start to see an increase. So I said it quadrupled over the last 50 years. Well, it's steadily about increasing on average about 2% each year. And it's pretty steady, which is kind of nice. So we know more people are going to be moving into it over the next few years. However, what that means for us is that supply and demand is going to change. We already know there's some kind of supply shortage, whether that be through materials or whatever it may be, whatever you think causes that. We know that's happening, and now we're going to start seeing this demand slowly increase. We're seeing home prices increase, we're seeing demand increase. It all is equaling up that we are going to only see it grow over time.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about supply and demand. That's like the biggest economic figure that we look at, why are prices increasing, right? And so with that also too, we are super limited on our water here, right? We're not next to this huge bodies of water like the Great Lakes or anything like that. We're pretty limited to whatever the Rocky Mountains puts down to us. And so in Fort Collins, they actually had to have a moratorium earlier in 2022 on the number of water taps that were being issued out. And even after they started issuing them out again, it was like super minimal to the point where builders are like, I don't know what the heck, they're getting choked off. They can't build, right? These water tap permits, I think they're only allowing like 10 a month in March. That is super limited. So guess what? When you have less housing, what happens? Well, housing goes up more and more and more. So now it's getting restricted a little bit more, and that we're definitely going to see a lot of that happening in Fort Collins. I mean, the house prices, if everything leads to that way, it's the perfect storm for house prices to keep going up. That's why it's important that you purchase now while there still are some houses available and the builders can still build off the permits that they got prior to what happened earlier this year.
And I want to talk about this for a second, because actually one of our clients had brought this up saying hey, if, I am leaning towards Fort Collins, is there enough water? Yes, there's enough water. Do we see things about drought? Okay, so we're talking about how this is going to affect building, which will affect supply and demand. Do I think there's going to be not enough water for you guys? Absolutely not. They're doing that strategically on how they're building for the water supply that they have. So don't get worried that they're like, oh gosh, what's the water situation like? They're going to have to regulate that and then figure out what's next. The other thing too is that yes, in Colorado, just a quick little fact, if we don't get enough rainfall, we do have some kind of drought restrictions. That means watering your lawn a little differently and things like that. So just want to clarify that a little bit, because I know that was something that was kind of expanded a lot in either other channels or other, in news articles or whatever it may be. They are going to have to, it's really affecting the building and how many people they can put in one area, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It just really will drive up the prices in homes.
Speaking about talking about water, I was reading an article. Have you guys seen this about Lake Mead, how low it is? And they're finding barrels at the bottom of the lake of dead bodies from the 80s and shit. And
they're it's okay. It was from a long time ago. I'm it's not okay. It's still a dead body.
Well, what's even worse is the sheriff is saying I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be the last barrel that we find. And it's
How far is Mead from where we're talking? Do
Las
not
Vegas. It's outside Las
do
Vegas.
not think that is here if you're looking for $4.
I'm just saying, I was reading an article. I love reading these like strange, weird articles, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of freaking weird right next to the Hoover Dam. But
all right, let's go ahead into the third reason why we think you need to move to Colorado right now.
I'm sure that a common thing that you constantly hear from real estate agents is like, why would you rent when you buy, But
right.
I mean, there's some truth to that as opposed to like, the mortgage that you could have as opposed to the rent that you're paying. We're going to go over some of those numbers in Fort Collins right now.
Yeah, so I looked up for you 2022 fair rent market. And the reason I did that is because I think sometimes when you're looking up data, especially like across the board, it's really hard to get an understanding about what rent costs are supposed to be. Now, supposed to be versus are very different. So I'm going to cover a little bit of that for you. So real quick, studio, I looked it up just recently. It's $1,000 for studio in the fair market. One bed is $1,096. I'm sorry, this is for 2021. 2-bedroom is $1,351, 3-bedroom is $1,933, and 4-bedroom is $2,339. That's a lot of numbers. What does that mean for you, right? Well, what we're seeing is an increase in about 5 to 8, almost 9% year over year. So from last year at those numbers, those have increased with one of the most desirable being a 2-bedroom. The 2-bedroom has increased 8.6% in rent. Okay, fine, whatever, right? Rent is still relatively cheap compared to other states.
Yep.
We get that. However, what does that mean for you? So Peter and I were talking about, okay, well, if you're up there looking at like maybe you have a family, you have a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house.
Yep.
You're looking between, I think it was $2,000 and $2,400 on the fair market. However, 50% of all of the the rental options on there are not in that 3 to 4 bedroom range. In fact, the most rental options out there are in the 2-bedroom range, and they are ranging from $1,500 to $2,000, which is not even close to what the fair market says it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So really what we're trying to get out of this is, are you going to be paying the fair market for rent? Absolutely not. In fact, you're going to be paying something way closer to a mortgage.
Yeah, and so we've talked about this so many times, guys, where it's like, why would you put your money towards rent when you could be building equity in a house? Of course, we understand there's some instances where, say, like, you're coming here and you're picking up a brand new job. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to at least rent for, 6 months. That way I have those paychecks rolling in. We understand those situations. But 100%. If you have a situation where you have a steady job, where you're coming here, relocating here for a job, or say you could work remote in another state from Fort Collins, just totally got jumbled there. Why not purchase right now, right? Like, you're just talking about, what was it, $2,500? $2,500, that'll give you a $500,000 house with 20% down, right? And so it's like, come on, guys. It's like, why not purchase the house and take advantage of these equity gains that we're talking about? Another thing that you always talk to us about as well, too, is like, what if I don't want to be there? Well, what if you don't? Let's say that you purchase there, and then a year later you decide, you know what, I want to move further south, or I want to move further north. Great. Now you have either a rental property, or you can sell that property. Now you just got
double-digit gains.
We just talked about double-digit gains. Okay, so now you have equity that you can put towards your next house. So it's kind of a win-win. Again, we don't know what the future's going to hold. We don't know if house price. Everyone says, "Oh, the housing crash is coming. The housing crash is coming." I don't see anything pointing towards that. It's all supply and demand. And right now, Colorado is low on supply, so that demand is up. House prices are going to keep going up.
So that kind of leads us into the fourth one. And this is like a bonus. And this is a no-brainer for people who live here. But if you are not familiar with Fort Collins, one of the reasons you need to move now is because Fort Collins is the best.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's the best.
We like to fluff it a little bit because, I mean, throwing facts at you all day long and seeing your eyes glaze over, we understand that. It's like, okay, cool, numbers and this and that or whatever. I can look this up on Google, right? Well, Fort Collins is amazing. Like I said, the lifestyle, you could have an outdoor lifestyle that you want to do there. I mean, they have all the hiking, biking, rafting. You get lake life. I don't know if you've ever experienced like actual lake life. It's like a cult in Fort Collins, right? They have clubs, meetups that you can do. So if you're coming here and you don't know anyone, say that you don't even have a boat. If you just join a meetup for lake life, you could go boating with them on their boat because they just want to bring people on their boat because everyone wants to act like they're cool on their boat for lake life,
He's gonna get darts. He's getting darts right now.
I always say
people
stuff like
that
get darts.
People are cool on their boat.
They're super cool.
I want a boat.
I mean, I'm sure get some Oakley sunglasses and get out there.
Oh God, here he goes. Okay, but anyways, yeah. So Fort Collins. Here's another thing. We recently just did interviews, and we are interviewing in different cities, and we just did interviews in Denver and Fort Collins. let's talk a little bit about that. Denver people are very different than Fort Collins people. And I know that's like, you know, we're going to actually cover a really fun video in the next coming weeks about some stereotypes, but it is so much more friendly in Fort Collins than it is in Denver. People were coming up to us asking us, what are we doing? Like, can they be part of it? All these different things. And it's because it's just a very different feel in Fort Collins, and people want to be part of that.
Yeah, guys, I mean, listen, we live in the Denver metro area, so we could appreciate the people here and all that stuff, but there's just something about Fort Collins. We even actually interviewed someone who was purchasing a house down in Denver, but she's like, you just cannot beat the people in Fort Collins. They're so friendly, and they were just coming up to us, randomly talking to us. Even if they didn't want to get interviewed, they just wanted to talk to us in general. And so it was super cool,
so
and they're
nice.
super friendly, super humble. And so the people in Fort Collins are just freaking amazing, and it doesn't matter even if you're an outsider, they will be friendly, like no matter what.
Yeah, a lot of people will talk about, okay, yes, when you're moving to Colorado, a lot of people are moving to Colorado because it's great. And so there are a couple like naysayers who are sitting here like, don't move here. You know, we have too many people. Reality is we don't have that many people. I mean, like, not in comparison to some of these other states
exactly.
and cities and stuff. And so, yes, is it more populated than when we all grew up, especially as natives? Yes, of course. But one of the things, one of the people that we interviewed, she was said, you know, I was really worried about moving here, but then I found out, like, everyone's so friendly and, like, I was so invited. And that just shows, like, that is from somebody who moved right into Fort Collins, who was very nervous about that.
Yep.
And really, she had nothing to worry about. And she was like, gosh, you know, I was so accepted. It was so much easier than I thought to make friends. And like, I think that speaks highly of Fort Collins.
I agree. Very good.
All right. Well, if you guys are interested in any other cities, topics, you have something to say about what we said today, please comment down below. Reach out. We always put our phone number, email, all the contact information that you need to reach out however you prefer. Let us know. We do these videos for you.
Yeah, guys, and with that phone number, I'm going to throw it in right below, right there. So give us a call, give us a ring if you're looking at purchasing real estate in Colorado, more specifically Fort Collins. Until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye. Are you waiting to call Colorado your... If you're interested in moving to Colorado... and we're the people that you need to know when moving to Colorado.
Yeah, guys, when we talk...
I did so good.
Okay.
Are you interested? Nope. Waiting on Peter.